Yeah, it's Saturday morning, and you know what time it is. I want to welcome each and every person to Coach Steele's Finance Training. And of course, I want to introduce myself. I am Coach Steele. Happy to have you all in the building on today. Happy to have you in the room. And of course, I am live on YouTube, Coach Steele's Finance Training. Make sure you subscribe. And I'm also live on Facebook. And so happy to be here on today to talk to you all about financial literacy. And here at Coach Steele's Finance Training, we talk about all things financial literacy, and we try to make the complicated things a little more simpler. That way, everyone can understand, and we can take action and improve our financial situations and take it up another level. So happy to have you here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. You already know it is Saturday morning, 9 a.m. We go live consistently. And so you know to get your popcorn ready. And if you need to put me on TV, on YouTube TV, put me on TV. If you want to leave me on Facebook, leave me there on Facebook. But you already know the house rules. When you jump in the room, tell me good morning. Talk to me. If you watch this later, tell me good evening. I read all the comments. So happy to have everybody here today on Coach Steele's Finance Training. We want to give a shout out to Mr. Tony Sherman. Good morning to you. Happy to have you in the building, on the broadcast, tuning in. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are still talking about this awesome book that I read years ago, but I decided to do for the next few weeks, more of like a book club. We are reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And so we're going to enjoy going through this book and just summarizing each chapter and having a great conversation with each other. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts, your comments, your feedback as we go through each chapter of reading this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if you missed chapter 1, it's fine. Go to Coach Steele's Finance Training on YouTube and go back and watch it so you can catch up. And so if you're late to getting your book, that's fine as well. I have a link that you can order the book from in my description on this live. So you can always order the book. You can take your time, catch up, and watch the video. So you can enjoy all of this at your own pace. Make sure you subscribe to Coach Steele's Finance Training and you'll catch all of that stuff. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about chapter 2 because we went over chapter 1. And in chapter 1, the title of chapter 1 was, let's see if we can get to it. It was The Rich Don't Work for Money. That's crazy. Doesn't that sound crazy? It says the rich don't work for money. That was chapter 1, and we went over that already. So go back, watch that video, catch the review. Today we are discussing why teach financial literacy. That's chapter 2 on today. So as you're tuning in, make sure you share the live. And like I mentioned before, you may have some young people, middle schoolers, high schoolers that need to read a book. Give them this assignment. I think I had my youngest son, he might have read this like in elementary school. He's like 5th grade. So you can go as young as elementary school. They won't comprehend all of it, but you can definitely make this a reading assignment for the family or for a group or organization, and then tune in to Coach Steele's Finance Training together, and we'll just go over it together as a big community. I appreciate everyone that shares the live because you don't have to, and so I appreciate you being unselfish and spreading the love and the information about financial literacy. So as we get this party started, why teach financial literacy? That is chapter 2. Robert Kiyosaki, when he goes over chapter 2 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he fast forwards from what happens in chapter 1. Now in chapter 2, his friend Mike, who had the rich dad, and then of course Robert Kiyosaki, his father was the poor dad. So when he says his rich dad, he's not talking about biological. He literally adopted his best friend's dad because he could teach him about money. He was educating him, he was schooling him, he was pouring into him, and he was mentoring him. So Mike, his best friend, his rich dad has turned the business over to his son. And so Mike has become very successful, Mike is very wealthy, and Robert Kiyosaki is doing very well for himself as well. So it's interesting that if you read chapter 2, then you know that the story in their life is fast forward. So he starts off with a great quote, and I love this quote because on Coach Steele's Finance Training, we talk about the subject of cash flow and how much money you have left over at the end of every month. And this is the quote in chapter 2. It says, "It's not how much money you make, it's about how much you keep." Sometimes people get excited talking about how much money they make or how much their job pays them, but it's not always about how much money you make that matters. It's about how much you keep and what you do with it. How much do you keep? How much cash flow do you have left over at the end of every month? And that's why Coach Steele's Finance Training always, you'll hear me give you all kind of quizzes on vocabulary and words of, what does cash flow mean? And that's basically cash flow is the money that's left over at the end of every month after you pay your bills and expenses. What do you have left over? What can you keep? What can you play with? What can you go invest? How much can you go invest? What money is left over at the end of every month? And so when we talk about this quote, it's not about how much money you make that matters, but it's about how much you keep and what you do with it. So it starts off pretty powerful with that quote. I love it. And it's something that I try to focus on because someone can be extremely rich. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be an NBA player. But if your expenses, if your liabilities cause you to have to use all your income and you're breaking even or paycheck to paycheck, it doesn't matter how rich you are. It's what do you have left over at the end of every month. If a millionaire is breaking even at the end of every month because they have too many expenses, both yacht, house, you name it, credit cards max, but there's somebody that makes $50,000 a year and at the end of every month they have an extra $1,000 left over, then that person is potentially, and I'm pretty sure, more wealthy than the millionaire because of what they have left over at the end of every month and what they can build because they do have cash flow. All right, so when we look at this, it says in 1990, Mike took over his father's empire and is in fact doing a better job. When he says Mike took over his father's empire, he's playing with the word there that he's going to use later on. So we're going to see that word empire later on as we continue to go forward. So if you're tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, make sure you tap in, tell us good morning, greet us. Happy to have you, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now, of course, he lets us know for himself, Mike took over his dad's business. Robert says in 1994, he retired and he was 47 years old. I love the fact that he used the word in this book talking about he retired because he defines retirement the way I define retirement. Sometimes when we use the word retirement, good morning to you, Mr. Earl Rich. Happy to have you tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Sometimes when we use the word retirement, people take it the wrong way. And Robert does a good job of kind of defining what retirement means. He said he retired, he was 47, and his wife, Kim, was 37. Listen to this. Retirement does not mean not working. For us, it means that barring unforeseen cataclysmic changes, we can work or not work. It's having the option. And our wealth grows automatically. Who wants their wealth to grow automatically? Think about having your wealth growing on autopilot, automatically. So, and it's staying ahead of inflation. That's another word we use on Coach Steele's Finance Training. Our assets are large enough to grow by themselves. It's like planting a tree, he says. You water it for years, and then one day it doesn't need you anymore. Your money doesn't need your physical involvement for it to continue to grow and for it to outpace inflation and to fund your liabilities, to fund your expenses and your lifestyle. And that's what gives him the option to work or not to work. And this tree that he planted, he said the roots are implanted deep enough. Then the tree provides shade for your enjoyment. He defined retirement as I see it very, very well. So when some people say they're retired, that means they're not doing anything. And that's not what I mean. When I talk about retirement, I'm going to do something. I don't think I could just sit around all day and not do anything at all. So anyway, his friend Mike chose to run the empire. And when it talks about that first quote that I mentioned in the beginning about how it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you have left over at the end of every month and what you do with it. There's a part in the book where he shows all of these, he talks about all of these wealthy men, these rich men that had a lot of money, the richest businessmen. It says in 1923, a group of our greatest leaders and richest businessmen held a meeting at Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago. Among them were Charles Schwab. Now that name sounds familiar. We've heard of that bank before, Charles Schwab, or a place to invest your money. Head of the largest independent steel company, Samuel Insull, president of the world's largest utility. Howard Hobson, head of the largest gas company. Ivar Gruger, president of International Match Company, one of the world's largest companies at the time. Leon Fraser, president of the Bank of International Settlements. All of these rich people he's going through. Richard Whitney, president of the New York Stock Exchange. Arthur Cotton and Jesse Livermore, two of the biggest stock speculators, and Albert Fall, a member of President Harding's cabinet. Why is he mentioning all these people? Well, we're getting to it right here. 25 years later, 9 of these titans ended their lives as follows. Schwab died penniless after living for 5 years on borrowed money. Insull died broke in foreign land, and Kruger and Cotton also died broke. Hobson went insane. Whitney and Albert Fall were released from prison, and Fraser and Livermore committed suicide. He's driving home the point of his original statement. It's not about how much money you make. These gentlemen were rich. It's about what you did with it. And a lot of them made bad choices and decisions. And so even though they had a lot of money, they weren't able to benefit and sustain themselves from it. And so as you read chapter 2 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he's trying to drive home the importance of having financial intelligence. As you're tuning in to Coach Skills Finance Training on today, I want someone to write in the chat section, financial intelligence. That is what is important right now, is do you have financial intelligence? What level are you at? And are you willing to do the work and homework and get mentored and guidance to increase and raise your level of financial intelligence on today? All right, let's go deeper. So when he talks about financial intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, he says money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. Money without the financial intelligence is money that is soon gone. In other words, the money is temporary without the intelligence. The money is coming to stay, but for a short period of time if you have a lack of financial intelligence. So that's why it's so important not to think, oh, what can I do to get rich quick now? Oh, what can I do to fix everything in one day? No. Pump your brakes, slow it down. Get the financial intelligence so when the blessing, when the money does come, you'll know what to do with it. Most people fail to realize that in life, it is not how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep and what you do with it. So he's going to continue to drive home that point. You're correct, Mr. Tony Sherman. It ends up being wasted funds because you don't have the financial intelligence. You have to increase your knowledge and be willing to try something new. Some people are so held back because they put themselves in a box. They limit themselves instead of willing to open their minds up and try something new. And in this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki is driving home the point of don't be the old dog that can't learn new tricks. Don't put yourself in a box that this system has made that is going to limit you from being able to spread your wings and truly fly at a level that you're capable of. So as we go over chapter 2, he talks about this financial intelligence and why people fail. And so He doesn't want us to be rich and financially illiterate. You need to be literate so you can understand. And so he talks about this word empire. He talks about how Mike, his friend, as he got older, his dad passed on his empire. And that's a blessing that his best friend, who had the rich dad, was able to get millions worth of assets and business passed down to him. There's a word used for that when you pass down the business to your family. It's generational wealth. And then there's another word, but it's slipping my mind right now. Now, this is what he says. If you are going to build the Empire State Building, the first thing you would need to do is dig a deep hole and pour a strong foundation. If you're going to build the Empire State Building, a tall building, you need to build a deep hole so you have a big, strong, sturdy foundation. If you're going to build a home in the suburbs, all you need to do is pour about 6-inch slab of concrete. Most people, in their drive to get rich, trying to build an Empire State Building on a 6-inch slab. So what happens is many people don't build a strong foundation, but they want an Empire State Building worth of wealth. But what happens is if you only build a 6-inch slab of concrete, create a foundation of 6-inch slab, that's only big enough for a house. And so what he's saying is you need a deep, sturdy, strong foundation of financial literacy if you want to truly grow wealth and build it at a large scale. If you don't, you have to be realistic where you are. So let's go a little bit further because he's setting the foundation here of having the right mentality. So you must understand that wealth building starts with how well you educate yourself financially. And so how can you educate yourself financially? One, you could join us with reading this book together, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I have the link in the description so that way you can order the book. And of course, tuning in to Coach Steele's finance training and other good financial literacy platforms. Don't just listen to me, but listen to other wise people as well. I deal with a lot of foundational, fundamental things that are going to help you build a foundation so that you can build that Empire State Building. Now, start with the basics. When you read chapter 2 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and on my small book, I'm on page 80. When you start with the basics, he starts teaching the difference between what an asset is and what a liability is. And of course, Coach Steele's finance training, that's something that we've talked about plenty of times. I try to educate people on what the difference is between an asset and a liability. So when he starts with the basics of financial literacy, he's teaching and educating on what an asset is and what is a liability. So as you're tuning in to Coach Steele's finance training on today, I ask you, what is your definition of an asset and what is your definition of a liability? So in the comment section, you can tell me what your definition of an asset is, or you can write asset and list some things that are assets. And you can tell me what your definition of a liability is. And in the comment section, write what some liabilities are. Because there's a misconception sometimes of what people understand what is an asset and what a liability is. And because of that simple misconception and misunderstanding, people drown themselves in debt. People drown themselves in expenses and costed bills with liabilities because they were so busy acquiring liabilities that they thought would be an asset. And so understanding this basic, Robert Kiyosaki says, will really, really change the game. Because once you understand the difference between the two, then you understand how to go acquire which one that is necessary for you to grow wealth at a high level. I remember months ago when we were here on Coach Steele's finance training and people were naming examples of what they thought were assets and they were actually naming liabilities. And so it's very, very interesting to hear what people thought were actually assets that was actually liability. All right, let's go deeper. All right, start with the basics. And this is the one of the fatal flaws of the middle class and the poor is that the middle class and the poor struggle to identify the difference between the two. I remember when Robert Kiyosaki was asking his rich dad a question, and even Mike was asking what an asset was, his friend as well. And his rich dad said, well, first I'll read what one of the children said. He says, "You mean all we need to know is what an asset is, acquire them, and then we'll be rich?" And the rich dad nodded his head. "It's that simple." "If it's that simple, how come everyone is not rich?" I asked. Rich dad smiled. "Because people do not know the difference between an asset and liability." And that is, even though it's that simple, because people don't know the difference between an asset and a liability, they struggle. Because you must understand this, and I don't want anyone to get offended. We're just teaching game here at Coach Steele's Finance Training. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And so it says the poor and the middle class, they work physically hard. You'll see a lot of the poor and the middle class, everything they do to acquire money is physically wearing themselves down, physically having to put in hours. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you have to feed your family, you have to earn a living. And plus you can use that money to eventually be able to acquire assets. So understand, as we go over the difference between what an asset is and what a liability is, the average person thinks that their house and believes their house is an asset. But if that house does not make you money, if that house doesn't put you in the green, if it doesn't put you in the positive, and it is costing you and taking more money out of your pocket than actually putting in, then it is currently a liability. Some people thought that their car was an asset last time we were on here. And I had to remind them, if you don't rent that car out, if it's not on Turo, or you're not making money off your car, or there's not some type of sign or billboard that's bringing in more cash into your vehicle because of your vehicle, when you look at what it's bringing in versus insurance, if you have a car payment, fuel, oil changes, then that car is a liability. But there's a way to make your vehicle an asset if it can bring in more money than what it costs you to maintain it or to pay the financing on it. So a lot of people don't understand the difference between an asset and a liability. So as you're tuning in on today, like I said, write your definition of what an asset is or a liability in the comment section, and you can write some examples down as well. Now, the poor and the middle class, they work hard, and I've done this in the past. I used to be in the Army, and so in the Army, starting off, you really don't make much money, but we physically wore ourselves out to earn a paycheck. And the poor and the middle class work hard and wear themselves out physically to earn money. If we aren't physically there on the job site or at that location, we don't get income. But the wealthy, they take this approach different. The wealthy and the rich work with their mental. They use their mind, they use the art of negotiation, they use the art of moving money. Wealthy people, rich people who are able to pass down generational wealth, that are able to create passive income, that are able to hire other people and create a business and have employees. Wealthy people use their brain more than they use their physical to earn money and to make money. And so you have to start practicing, how can I use my mindset? How can I use certain financial principles with my mind to earn money, as opposed to it always having to be something physical that I have to do to make money? How do you do that? You have to be in the right environment. You have to be around the right people that can teach you, coach you, mentor you, and guide you to that place. If you're intimidated about mentorship and coaching, then this can be difficult for you. But just like if you wanted to lose weight, potentially you might get a trainer, you might have to go to the gym. Regardless, whatever you're going to do, you have to get reps in. You have to work out. And when you want to learn how to become wealthy using your mind, you have to get reps in. You have to start thinking a completely different way from how you used to think. And that's what this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is good about. It's about shifting your mindset. So when we look at the definition of, an asset and a liability, I'll put something in the comment section that'll make it easier for you to understand. And you must understand that an asset puts money in your pocket and a liability takes money out your pocket. It's just that simple. Don't overthink it. If you have something that puts money in your pocket, that is an asset. If it's taking money out of your pocket, it's a liability. Assets help you get in the green, liabilities create red. So, what the wealthy do is the rich become and stay wealthy by buying assets, not liabilities. Because you can use the assets that bring in income to pay for the liabilities and the expenses and the bills and things like that. And I've given some examples here on Coach Steele's finance training before on how I creatively use assets to pay for liabilities and things like that. And so I'll try to give some more examples today if we have time. One of the simple examples that I always remind everyone about is when I was younger, one of the things that I did was, instead of rushing to buy my dream house, what I did was I bought a starter house. And I purposely bought a starter house for my family, something small, not too big. It was easy to pay the bills on it, didn't cost much at all. And so eventually we paid that house off in like 10 years. And we just had extra money at the end of every month. And my strategy was rent that starter house out to pay for the next house. So what I did was I lined up renters, and then once I had the renters in place, I was able to buy the new house. I moved into the new house, and the rent from the starter house paid for the dream house that I wanted, or at the time, the dream house that I thought that I wanted. I've since moved to a different location as well, but I use the same concept. The old house, the second one, I used the rent from that house to pay for the new house. But this new house that I've been in for 5 years is completely paid off in full. So now the rent from the old house is just overflow. And so you can learn how to use assets to pay for the liability. Some people rush to buy a car. My mentality is, how can I create an asset to pay for this monthly car note? How can I create an asset to pay for this car in full if I don't want a payment on that car note? I might want to go find a deal on a car so that I can keep the cash flow coming in and increase how much I have left over at the end of every month. And so if you're tuning in to Coach Steele's finance training on today, we want to give a shout out and good morning to Kashana Johnson. We're reading the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you don't have the book, I have the link in the description so you can order the link from that, order the book from that description. And of course, if you have missed chapter 2, good morning to you, Mr. John Johnson as well. We're in chapter 2, but if you missed chapter 1, don't worry about it. It is recorded and saved on Coach Steele's finance training, so you can always jump in there and go back and watch this. So we're talking about assets and liabilities. And I know you can't see it on here, no problem, but when you order your book, you'll be able to. But on that chart, what Robert is teaching you is your assets should be your income. Your assets should be what brings in your income. Sometimes the poor and the middle class, what brings in our income is our 9-to-5, our active income and not our passive income. And so the assets should bring in your money. Once again, Robert is driving home the point of be creative, use your mind to bring in money and not you physically having to be there. Because when you have to physically be there at work, you're limited on how much money you can make. Why are we limited on how much money we can make? Well, it's pretty simple. Your job is only going to let you get so many hours. Your body is only going to let you get so many hours. You can only physically do but so much. Your job is only going to give you what so much of a raise or increase. But if you have your own business, if you have your own assets, you can potentially give yourself an increase at a faster pace and rate than what your 9-to-5 job can. Am I bashing 9-to-5 jobs? No. I implore and tell everyone, work that 9 to 5 as long as you have to until you can transition to whether you work independently for yourself or you invest or whatever it is. Or what a lot of my listeners do is we do both. We have a 9 to 5. We also have entrepreneurship, or we run business, or we invest. We do both, and we let that 9 to 5 fund that goal and that dream till we can get out of the rat race and eventually disconnect potentially from that 9 to 5, or continue to do it if you like to do it. Once again, Robert Kiyosaki's definition of retirement is being able to have the option to work or not work, because the tree you planted, the growth that you have over here from this wealth is bringing in so much income every month that it doesn't matter whether you work or not, because you can sustain yourself with what you have built, that empire that you built, not on the 6 inches of slab, but you dug a deep hole so that you could build an empire state building worth of wealth. Now, let's get back to the book. All right, so the asset should bring in income. And so this is going to challenge some of you of what asset can I acquire? What can I creatively do with my mind and my other time to bring in more income besides physically having to work to have money coming in? Yes, I want to challenge you all on today. And I want to hear your thoughts and your comments about this book. Get the book, use my link, order that book so that we can continue this book club together. All right. Let's go a little bit further. Liabilities, we already defined them. It is something that takes money out of your pocket. This is really all you need to know. If you want to be rich, simply spend your life buying or building assets. If you want to be poor or middle class, spend your life buying liabilities. Liabilities suck up all your cash flow, it traps up your money, and it traps your future investment opportunities. All right. It says in this book, in 80% of most families, the financial story paints a picture of hard work to get ahead. That's what they tell us when we're growing up. Do hard work, you'll get ahead. However, this effort is for naught because they spend their lives buying liabilities instead of assets. And it's so interesting because a liability, it's like, it gives me an allergic reaction. In a sense, think about it that way. A liability should make you cringe sometimes if you don't have the asset to pay for it. Liability, something that costs you money every month and you have to finance and all of that, it should give you some type of reaction. And so the asset is the Benadryl to your reaction. The asset is the Benadryl to your liability. If you can remember that, that will help you make better decisions when people take you shopping. When people try to get you to go out and do this and to do that, you have to start thinking, did I create an asset? Did I create a cash flowing opportunity to pay for what I'm about to acquire? Do I have my Benadryl with me? In the comment section, I need you to write, my asset is my Benadryl. Now, if you can't spell Benadryl, then I understand. You can just say my asset is my B. So anyway, let's go a little bit further. All right, I want to get to the end of this. More money doesn't solve the problem. Financial literacy and the right mindset does. And so you have to understand, and we got some key points here. When you think about making more money, when you think about trying to get to a better place financially, when you think about trying to get out of debt, some people rush to the get rich quick mentality, and you have to be able to pace yourself and understand that more money puts your financial mentality on steroids. More money puts your financial mentality on steroids. I see somebody acting up in the comment section. That's fine. Shauna Johnson says, my asset is my Benadryl. I think she spelled it correctly. And if you missed the interview with Shauna Johnson, go to my YouTube channel, Coach Steele's Finance Training, and she has an awesome interview in there. And she said, you never have your Benadryl. It's an inside joke. I don't have time to tell that story today. We'll tell it another day. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts and your comments today. on this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you haven't read it yet, please go order the book. Use my link, order that book so we can continue this conversation together. Don't worry about if you're behind. I have the videos already recorded on my YouTube channel so you can catch up with us as we go through this. So I want you to understand this. When it comes to solving your financial problems, financial literacy, having the right mindset, shifting your mindset, don't be the old dog that can't learn a new trick. Because when you do make more money, because more money will come. When you do make more money, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know something. Money equals steroids to your mentality. I want you to let that sink in right there. Money equals steroids to your financial mentality. It gives your financial level steroids. So if you are not financially literate and you struggle financially, then you just put some steroids on that thing. If you are financially literate, if you are working hard and doing the right things and building a strong foundation, and money gives you that steroids, then you're going to improve. You're going to get better at certain things. So I really want to drive home the importance of learning and getting a good foundation. Before you rush to make decisions with your money, get guidance, get wisdom, get an understanding, get good coaching, get good mentorship. Find people that you can have a conversation with before you make a mistake that sets you back 5 years, 6 years. Money only accentuates the cash flow pattern running in your head. If your pattern is to spend everything you get, most likely an increase in cash will just result in an increase in spending. Thus, the saying, a fool and his money is one big party. And so that's on page 89 of the book that I have. Of course, I have a smaller size book. Get the size that you need. All right. This is interesting too, and I'm going to speed to this part, but long story short, Robert Kiyosaki is not a fan of conventional education and the school system. Why? Because he believes, and I understand where he's coming from, school systems, elementary, middle, and high school, and college, for the most part, pump out workers. They teach people how to solely focus on just being workers. And he doesn't believe that they do an amazing job as a whole of teaching financial literacy. Now, are there some great teachers and workers out there in the school system that do a good job of teaching young people financial literacy? Yes, there are some outliers out there. But he's saying as a whole, the system is flawed because it teaches everyone how to go out and be a worker. And when you become a worker, it puts you in the system that helps the government, because we pay taxes to the government and we help pay the bills for the system as a whole. So the poor and the middle class are deployed out into the world, into these 9-to-5 active income situations that help pay the bills for the government. While the rich and the wealthy, they are being creative with how they make money, which allows them to pay less in taxes, which allows them to have to pay less bills and expenses of the government, of the country, and it's put on the backs of the poor and the middle class to sustain. But either way, his mindset is the school system is not the best route to educate someone when it comes to financial literacy, because it's just only going to teach you how to learn to work hard and then put you in this rat race that is difficult to get out. And so you get stuck into the system in this rat race. And the classic story of hardworking people has a set pattern. And so he used an example of this couple and what happens to many people. It says, recently married, the happy, highly educated young couple now share a cramped rented apartment. You know how it is. People fall in love at a young age. They have an apartment. Immediately, they realize that they're saving money because two can live cheaply as one. So instead of one person having an apartment over here and another one there, or whether they're in a cramped apartment, they can just put their money together and buy a house. The problem is the apartment is cramped and they decide to save money to buy their dream home. We talked about this earlier. So they can have kids. Now they have two incomes and they begin to focus on their careers. Their income begins to increase, and as their income goes up, their expenses go up as well. The number one expense for most people is taxes. And he talks about how that happens. And then he says about this young couple, eventually their income increases. They decide to buy the house of their dreams. And once they're in the house with this mortgage, they have a new tax called property tax. Then they buy a car, and then they have to buy furniture for their house. Then they buy appliances and all this stuff. Next thing you know, they have debt because they have to finance and pay for all of this debt. And they have all of these liabilities, credit cards, mortgage, car note. And he says they're trapped in the rat race. And that's what ends up happening to most people. And so now, instead of having what we had over here, the assets being the income, now we have all of these liabilities taking up all the income. We have the liabilities and the expenses taking the income out of the figure, out of the equation. And so they're trapped in the rat race. Eventually they have a baby. He talks about that, and just how consistently people get caught up in this rat race in this country, which sets them back. And I have to be honest, that kind of similarly happened to me and my wife. We started off in an apartment, we had kids. The only difference is, instead of buying the dream home, like I mentioned earlier, I was reading books like this and listening to Dave Ramsey and other information about real estate investing. And I bought a starter home instead of the dream home. And that was the start of me making wise decisions. Well, one of the starts for me making wise decisions to build generational wealth. Now, in the book, it says, as a child, this is Robert talking, my dad often told us Japanese were aware of 3 powers. And this is interesting in the book as well. The power of the sword, the jewel, and the mirror. Now, what is the symbolism behind that? The sword represented the power of weapons, and he talked about how America is powerful because they have weapons. Then he talks about the jewel. The jewel represents the power of money. And there is some degree of truth to the saying, remember the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rule. And then this last one, the power of the mirror. The mirror symbolized the power of self-knowledge. This self-knowledge, according to Japanese legend, was the most treasured of the 3. And so he's saying, out of these 3 Japanese things that his dad told him, quotes that he told him, wisdom, focus on the power of the mirror, which is your self-knowledge. All too often, poor and the middle class allow the power of money to control them. I won't go into that, but it's interesting how he talks about people who depend solely on 9-to-5 jobs. It's because of fear and the power of money to control you. But I don't necessarily agree. Some people like the job that they do. They have a passion to do it. And whether they were financially free or not, they would still do that job. So all people aren't controlled by their 9-to-5. But I understand what he's saying. He's not speaking specifically for everyone. He's saying the masses. All right. And about how the 9-to-5 job is like less, they feel that it's less risky, but really a 9-to-5 is very risky because they can let you go at any moment. We saw what happened in the beginning of this year when there was a shift in power. All right. A person can be highly educated, professional, successful, and financially illiterate. So that's why the power of self-knowledge is important. And so he talks about basically making sure you grow your financial literacy to the point to where you don't limit yourself to where you have a play it safe mentality. And you don't just limit on the stock market or a 401k or TSP or an IRA for your sole opportunity to retire. And in the book, he talks about the history of the stock market going up and down and people thinking they were going to get to retire and then losing 30 to 40% or 20% of their funds. And then, of course, how they say dollar cost average, play it safe, leave it in there. But what if you had planned on retiring? What if you needed to step away because of physical conditions? And you can't just wait it out for 2 more years for the market to recorrect itself, or 6 months. So he talks about that, being flexible, using your mind to make more money so that you're not limited. And so he talked about not playing it safe and not leaning on the world system to make you successful financially. And he talks about something interesting. When he would be with his rich dad was very strategic of his circle. I want everyone to practice being very strategic of your circle, your group of people that you have around you. And that's something else that I'm interested to hear your thoughts and your concerns about, because we have best friends, we have people that we love, but we have to put ourselves in positive environments with good people that are going to elevate us. And sometimes you can reach back and help elevate some of those people that were in your circle. Now, he says his rich dad always had bankers, attorneys, accountants, brokers, investors, managers around him. He always had people that they define as specialists. He kept specialists around him. Who do you keep around you? Do you have specialists that you keep around you? Do you have people that specialize or are certified that this is what they do? This is their thing. This is their bag. It may not be your bag. It may not be what you specialize in, but it's what works for them, and they are masters at it. They have got it down pat. Appreciate you tuning in. Pastor Takara Nicole, Life at the Well in the building. She says it's very important. Pastor Takara is a specialist in certain areas. She's a life coach as well. And so I keep her around me because I need her expertise. That is part of my circle. That is part of the people that I stay in communication with throughout the week, throughout the month. Even if nothing's going on, I'm checking in with one of those people in my circle who is a specialist. Somebody, and like I said, depending on what field you're in, your circle is going to look different. Shout out to Lottie Bell Grant. Happy to have you tuning in, Lottie. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so excited for you and the progress that you're making in life and the business that you're doing. Go ahead and shout out your business, Lottie. Go ahead and talk to us. Tony Sherman saying he's got Simon Steele around him in his circle. I think that's why he put my name there. And Takara saying, I have to keep you around. You're a bully. Okay, that's debatable. Lottie, how are you doing on this morning? I'm so excited for you and what you got going on. You have taken yourself out of a box and being creative and finding other creative ways to bring in cash flow, which is what this book is talking about. Coach Steele's Finance Training, we're reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it's talking about shifting your mindset, becoming more financially literate, and understanding and not being illiterate when it comes to money. Because when you're financially literate, you make better decisions. You learn how to acquire assets and not liabilities. And I have a confession to make on today, guys. I am addicted to acquiring assets. I have a serious problem. I am addicted to researching and looking to acquire assets. And I got to calm down. But anyway, let's continue further. Lottie, what do you do? What is the other way that you have found creatively to bring in more money? You can put it on Coach Steele's Finance Training. I want to shout it out and share it anyway. So, matter of fact, one day that's something we should talk about on here so you can share with everyone your journey with what you're doing. That would be great. We might have to interrupt our book series just to talk about it. We'll see. All right, let's see what else we got here. Surround yourself with specialists. And what I was saying is, depending on what you do will determine what specialists you have around me. I like real estate investing. I have to have contractors around me. I need to be in conversation with brokers, with real estate agents. And of course, I need to find people who want to sell their properties and things like that. And so my circle is going to look different. And then even the contractors I have around me, whether it's plumbers, whether it's AC guys, whatever it is, repair, my circle of specialists is going to look different compared to someone else. So Takara is, she's in a lot of different things, but one thing, she has her own hair salon. And so with her hair salon, there's everybody with different types of hair and want different types of things done to their hair. So when you go in her hair salon in Richmond Hill, you're going to have specialists that specialize in being able to do different things with hair and with different customers, from young to old and all of that good stuff. So let's continue and go a little bit further. I think I'm almost done. And so I appreciate everybody tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That will definitely be appreciative. An intelligent person hires people who are more intelligent than he or she is. So Mike and Robert had the benefit of spending hours listening to and learning from intelligent people. We started to understand why the rich dad told us that schools were designed to produce good employees instead of employers. All right. Education system, like I told y'all, Robert does not like the school education system and how it is designed to create workers. All right, let me skip ahead. We want to buy assets instead of liabilities. One interesting thing about this book that I found is, and we're almost done, guys. One thing that I found is Robert doesn't spend much time going over the basics of budgeting. Like one thing I do at Coach Steele's Finance Training, I talk a lot about budgeting basics. In this book, he's talking about shifting your mindset, but he's not going to draw out, like when I did the compare and contrast of Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover, Dave Ramsey goes into more detail of like setting up the fundamentals and the basics and the backbone of your budget and how to get on track. Robert takes you to that next level. Right here, Dave plays it more safe, more consistent for the masses that everybody can grasp and understand. Robert doesn't go in detail about budgeting, but he does talk about the importance of setting up your budget to create more cash flow. He says, keep liabilities and expenses down so more money is available to continue pouring into your asset column. In other words, he's saying set up your budget, get your money right, have cash flow left over at the end of every month so that we can go get these assets. Now, he's not going to baby you into getting your budget right, but Dave Ramsey and, of course, I am going to baby you and get you on track to get your budget and your finances right so that you can take action here. You don't want to take this action and not have that right, or everything, the whole empire will, state building will come tumbling down. All right. So once again, shift that mindset, and wealth is defined. Some people say, what is wealth? And so in the comment section, I want you to write, what is wealth to you? If you had to define wealth, what is wealth to you? What would you say wealth is? And that's interesting. I want to hear your thoughts when it comes to wealth and what does wealth mean to you. For some people, wealth might be health. For some people, wealth might be family. What is wealth to you? Let's see here. What is wealth to you? If you're just tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, we are reading the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're getting ready to come to a close in about 7 minutes. And I'm interested to hear what your definition of wealth is. What does wealth mean to you? We're going over Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Chapter 2. And of course, next week we'll be on Chapter 3 if I don't have an interview coming up. And of course, we're talking about how to build up your asset column and not to get into that middle class trap of buying liabilities and building up all of these different expenses and things like that that can really set you back and cost you in the long run. And so if you don't know what wealth means to you, that's something you really need to think about on today. That's something that you really need to challenge yourself on if you don't know what wealth means to you. And so what I'm going to do on today is I'm going to read what the definition was, or definition is in this book, the definition that Robert Kiyosaki uses. All right, let's see here. Another thing we learned today is that our assets is our Benadryl. All right, here we go. Wealth is a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward, or if I were to stop working today, how long would I survive? So that's your wealth. When you think about what wealth is for you, Robert is saying your level of wealth, if you had to measure it, if you had to put a number on it, if you had to have a measuring stick or an amount, he says your wealth is your ability to survive so many number of days forward. How many days could you survive if you stop working today, how long would you survive? For some people, they might survive 2 days. For some people, they might survive 2 months. For some people, they might survive 2 years. But that is how you define your measure of wealth, according to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So put some emphasis on certain things. Like, for example, I'm in the real estate. So I do have some rental properties. If I don't work, I'm still going to have a level of money that comes in from the assets that will help me maintain myself if I don't work a 9 to 5. You have some people that put in 20 years in the military. If they don't work, no matter what, that money is going to come in. So that shows their level of wealth. So understand that wealth isn't always about how much money you have or how many properties you have, because you can have tons of property and they not be profitable. You could just be breaking even by paying the finances on the property and the property management and the repairs. And so it doesn't really define you having a large amount of wealth. It's what you have left over at the end of every month that can sustain you. So we got Lottie. She says, wealth is about security and peace of mind to provide for my family without worry. So wealth is going to look different for each and every person. All right, we got Shauna saying, to Kara, Nicole, truth be told, you are too. So as we continue to go forward and we're talking about what wealth is and how to be able to identify what your wealth is and your level of wealth and how to improve it, just think about that. If you were to stop working and everything was to be on go, you can hit play, but you don't have to interact. How long could you survive? How long could you maintain yourself by potentially only answering emails or phone calls, but not having to physically do anything? All right, so page 110 and 111 talks about wealth and all of that. And as we come to a close, and we're getting here at the end, the last thing he closes out on, which helps carry us over into chapter 3, he talks about, at the end of chapter 2, minding your business. Kind of interesting. He talks about how it is important, and it's funny because Rich Dad, Poor Dad, we're talking about changing your mindset, being able to grow wealth, have generational wealth, create passive income, improve your financial literacy. One of the important keys is to be able to mind your business. In the comment section for chapter 3, go ahead and write mind your business. So I'm excited to read chapter 3. Guys, I read this book years ago in my 20s, and I look back on it here and there over the years. But I can't, I remember the basics, the fundamentals of it, but I can't remember all of it. So I'm excited to read chapter 3 over again and talk next week about minding your business and what we can glean from what happens when you mind your business and what he's talking about there. And at the end of every chapter, he has a lot of questions and he has some note sections where you can review. Like I said, go to my link, get the book, and there's a note section and things like that you can write in. He has definitions for certain vocabulary and things like that. Questions like, how did you react when you first read Robert's definition of assets and liabilities? That's something we've done on Coach Steele's finance training before. There's other questions. How many days forward could you survive? That question is in here for you to answer. If you were to stop working, and do the number of days frighten you? Do they surprise you? And so that's something else that you get to look at here. So it's a challenge. It's a self-check. Timothy Scott, go to my link on my description if you haven't already. You might already have the book coming in, I don't know, but if you haven't, get the book. We got some work to do, Mr. Till. And then another question is, would you agree with this statement? What's missing from most people's education is not how to make money, but how to manage money. Why or why not? There's a lot of good questions in here. I won't go over those questions this week like I went over last week. But next week, we are going to be talking about minding your business and why that's important when it comes to financial literacy, acquiring wealth. I hope each and every person that tuned in today had an awesome time with Coach Steele's finance training. I had an awesome time with you. Yet last week, we had less than 450 subscribers on YouTube. And I said last week, well, why didn't we was at 449? I said, one of y'all that are listening, go ahead and be number 450. And sure enough, Coach Steele's finance training Our team, they did not disappoint. They did not disappoint at all. Guess what y'all did? Y'all went ahead and took it up another level. Coach Steele's Finance Training, I don't know who was listening in, but somebody went ahead, and they're not a hater, they're a lover. They was like, let me go ahead and get you to 450. And so as you look at the screen right here, we are steadily growing. We're building our community out here at Coach Steele's Finance Training. We're building it from scratch. We're building it right here from the ground up. We're cooking this thing with the basic recipes, cooking it from scratch. And as you see, Coach Steele's Finance Training, we are at 452 subscribers. Y'all are showing out. Yep. Because I can't do this without y'all. And so if you missed last week, it has Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Chapter 1, The Rich Don't Work for Money. So read the book, then go back and watch the reviews. I did put another video up there the other day, and the video from 2 weeks ago, Dave Ramsey versus Robert Kiyosaki. But you can go in here and watch all type of good videos. And if you like gardening, go over and click on the Shorts tab. And I got a lot of beautiful videos about the gardening I've been doing. I have so many more videos to post. Those are about the banana peppers and the okra and basil and all kind of other good stuff in there. And I got some videos to post about cucumbers as well. But anyway, enjoy the YouTube channel as you go through there. And some of the stuff that you see, some of the things that you like, let me know what you like. Comment on the videos as you scroll through there and enjoy the videos, and interact with me so that way I can post more of the content that you like. Appreciate everybody tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. This is truly a blessing. We are building something, a community and a team that is going to resonate with other people for a lifetime. So we are definitely building a legacy, and this content lasts forever. This content will continue to carry on to help other people as you all are commenting in the comment section, and they're going to be able to see your growth and progress that you made. A comment that you made 5 months ago on here, your outlook and your mindset and the growth, like somebody like Lottie Grant, it may be completely different a year from now where she is in her growth and her process. But anyway, you all have a blessed day. I have some business to tend